The leftist Twitch streamer Hasan modeled some of his favorite woke tees. Oh, this is too much, man. This is too much. How is he? I mean, this is the power of being a himbo right here. I'm trying to imagine if the same exact headline, same text, same picture, same drip, same pose. I had a Zelda shield and sword. I mean, he's just taunting me. He could do a katana. Like, this is bullshit. Can you imagine if I did something like this? Everything was the same. Everything identical, except it was me. Also not a weeb. I think we pretty much... That's over. That's fucking over. And here he is. Oh my god, dude. I mean, there's getting away with it, and then... This is beyond getting away with it. Internet heartthrob Hasan Piker. Internet heartthrob has awoken and riled up a generation of very online people who, with his bold leftist takes on politics and war, all of which he shares relentlessly on the streaming platform Twitch. Piker streams so much that he was too busy to talk to us for this story, so here he is modeling a bunch of t-shirts instead. Wait, he didn't do an interview for Interview Magazine? He can't keep getting away with it. This is ridiculous. I've defended this motherfucker in the past. Now he's gone too far. Can you imagine if I had this shirt? Sex workers of the world. Giga Chad doesn't interview with the Interview Magazine. Maybe Elk was right, chat. I can't believe he ghosted the interview on Interview Magazine. Every border implies the violence of its maintenance. Is like, what is this? I can't tell with the shirt. What's on the shirt? Is that like are those cat eyes? Like, what is this? I'm going goblin mode. That's right. What is this? He brought out the Master Sword and the Hylian Shield. Oh, he's got the Tay and the Tay Cussy. He has his Porsches there. Look at all those toolboxes, chat. Is that by the way, are those toolboxes for Marat? Those toolboxes are for Marat, not for him. Free them all. Is this like once he started painting his nails, he never stopped, huh? He's got a Larry David necklace? I knew it, chat. Hasan. Wait, hold on, chat. This is where he got this. This is where he got the idea to wear the MAGA hat. I knew it. He's a Larry David fan. He stole this fucking idea from Larry.
Car, you little. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Just be more careful next time, okay? Will do.
You know what? Actually, I think we'd prefer to sit at a table, please. Huh.
Sad. Look, I got this idea to wear that hat so I wouldn't have to have lunch with Phil Rosenthal, and it worked like a charm. He saw me in the hat and he left the restaurant. It was amazing. And
I'm not surprised.
you know what? It's really coming in handy.
Yeah, because no one's going to want to be anywhere near you.
Exactly. It's a great people repellent.
There are people that wear the MAGA hat and like what the MAGA hat represents. Are you afraid about alienating them? They could be fans of the show.
Alienate yourselves. Yeah. Go and alienate. You have my blessing. No, I could give a
Yeah, I'm a Larry David fan too. Of course we are. All right, this one's a pretty good shirt. I like this. I like this one. This one's pretty based. All right, this is his merch, right? This is a really good angle on his head. Like, he really got some good view. He got some good head size there. He got some good head size there. That's pretty good. Man, that drip is fucking sick. Okay. Abolish ICE. I mean, you know, that's a good one. I can't believe ghosted because of Twitch. I can't believe he ghosted an interview. And they published it anyway. My God. What an absolute, I mean, that may be the most Sigma move I've ever seen. He's too much on his grind. Like, I was going to say Giga Chad, but it's more like Giga Sigma. He's an absolute Giga Sigma. He's ascended to the next level. He's just like, you know, I will not stop the grind for you. Why is he grabbing his necklace every time like it's about to fly away? Don't ask models why they do what they do. He's a Sigma, Giga Sigma. Jesus Christ. Okay, I wanted to talk, since we're talking about Hasan, might as well. I wanted to show you this tweet, chat, which was probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen. 34K likes from Ostonox so this guy takes a private jet to Coachella, wears an $1,100 Hawaiian shirt, and is a socialist? Eye roll. Ostonox, absolutely 34,000. You're all telling me he's a Twitch streamer like I know what that is. It doesn't surprise me this guy wants to own 3 houses like Bernie Sanders. Try idolizing someone making real change like Kamala Harris. With friends like these, who needs enemies? Wow, this popped up. Follow my employer on Twitch. Only 2,000. So 34,000 likes for the slander. 2,000 likes for the please follow him. No! Man, if anybody else did this, they would get the block. This would get the block. And by the way, chat, I mean, like, one of the big debate perv parasites, debate perv parasites actually unironically retweeted that, or quote tweeted that. Coachella ends in a final poll results are in. After a 2.9 and 3.2 on previous days, Hasan has ended high with a fit check of 3.58 out of 5. Most respondents felt like this is a strong 4 to 5, though our methodology could not control for bias, as many haters reported difficulty seeing him. What the fuck is this fit? I didn't see it. What the fuck? What is he trying to hunt turkey? The last time I saw someone wear a fit like that, they were hunting turkeys with a bow. The Virgin Mary and the camo, I'm dead. Yeah, it's incredible. It's his good friend's fashion line. He made those pants live on stream. It's fucking based. I didn't say it was bad. Fucking based. Ostonox, man. Someone show me the... Hey, somebody linked me the quote retweet from the debate perv parasites. Here's the Felix response. Whenever I see people criticize a Turkish man for wearing a Gar's shirt, I start wondering what's next. Will you be angry at Jewish men for taking allergy medicine and doing our taxes early? Will you castigate German Americans for drinking 72 ounces of beer and wearing sandals? I don't want to live in a country that tells Dominican Americans that their t-shirt is 2 sizes small. Incredible. Someone taking the bait? Tankies will rant about how my grandfather deserved to have his independent music business taken away during the Cultural Revolution, while they defend Hasan riding in a private jet like it's a medical necessity for him. I don't think a single person defending Hasan self-identifies as a tanky. So this is just like talking about a person who doesn't exist. Also, I would definitely take away the Coachella jet when the Cultural Revolution kicks off here in America. LOL, I'm a verified account with over 28,000 followers. So clearly enough people have an interest in my political takes to stick around. Bro, you got it because you're part of some sort of right-wing think tank. The social media Kyoto-based researcher on Japan, DPRK. So I'm going to go ahead and guess you're getting some sort of NorthKoreaNews.org. I wonder who's funding this. NorthKoreaNews.org. I wonder who's funding that. Is it the CIA directly or is it just the State Department news? Let me guess. Okay, they say that they're 100% editorial independence, but they're based on their from customers, not subscribers, customers, and they're for profit. It does not have any commercial links with fields of government, business, or academia beyond subscription contracts for its suite of products. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that that's all CIA because I don't believe them. Until they're for profits, they don't have to show you transparency. Japan DPRK relations with the company is incorporated in Delaware. Yeah. He's verified though, chat. Let's check this out. I love this guy. Let's go. Does he actually tweet? I live in Japan where 98% of the population is Japanese. There are African countries where the majority of people are black, Nordic countries where most are white, and other countries that have a mixture of races. Here's a question. Who cares? So in other words, he's like, it's good to be an ethno-state, actually. Well, what do you know, chat? What do you know? Attacking tankies and being pro-ethno-state. That didn't take long. That was the first tweet from scrolling down his profile. Keep going. Oh my God. Holy shit. That's not the one I was thinking of, by the way. Did anyone find that debate bro parasite tweet yet? LMFAO, African countries have like 400 ethnicities per country. They're all black though. Yeah. Don't tell this guy about the Hutus and the Tutsis. They all just look black to him. He's not at all racist, by the way. Actual fucking garbage person. Absolutely fucking garbage person. I support ethno-states. is his first fucking thing he posts when I scroll. Incredible. Incredible. Oh my God, I never saw this Ostonox clip. What is this? Gilbert Gottfried died last week, chat, which is kind of a bummer.
I hope you enjoyed Hasan Positivity Week. I didn't, and now it's over. Get ready for Hasan Negativity Year. You moron fuck. You thought it was bad before. Go vegan, you fake leftist grifter. You have no excuse. You're just a pussy. Fuck you. I hope you enjoyed Hasan Positivity Week. I didn't, and now it's over. Get ready for Hasan Negativity Year. You moron fuck. You thought it was bad before. Go vegan, you fake leftist grifter. You have no excuse. You're just a pussy.
Holy shit! I had to listen to that again. Well, Hasan Negativity Year is off to a great start. He got a viral tweet trashing Hasan. He got a viral tweet. 34,000 likes is a massive tweet. Absolute success, man. Absolute clear success. Jesus Christ. Hasan Negativity Year. My God. My God. Holy shit. I have a good story. You want some Hogwatch, chat? Alex Jones is declaring bankruptcy.
On December 14th, 2012, a gunman shot and killed 20 first graders in
Alex Jones Infowars files for bankruptcy in wake of defamation suits over his assertions that Sandy Hook massacre was a hoax. Far-right website Infowars and two other companies owned by Radio Alex Jones have filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in light of several defamation lawsuits. The filings were made in the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of Texas. Oh, he cannot pay his debts. I don't think anybody who argues against student loan debt relief should be able to declare bankruptcy. I think every single person who argues against student loan debt relief should be barred from declaring bankruptcy and any business associated with them should be barred from declaring bankruptcy. More good news. Marjorie Taylor's campaign just reported a net fundraising loss in the first quarter of 2022, spending $314,000 more than she raised. The Democratic challenger doesn't matter. They're not going to win. It's a pointless waste of money to give money to her challenger. Don't give money to Marjorie Taylor Greene's Democratic challenger. Give it to anyone else. Literally. Don't do that. Don't fucking do that. Total waste of money. It's one of the most right-wing districts in the country. We're not winning it. They love Marjorie Taylor Greene. Just stop. Chapter 11 bankruptcy procedures put a hold on pending civil litigation while letting a business keep running as it prepares a turnaround plan. CBS News showed that the companies that were Infowars, IW Health, and aka Infowars Health, and Prison Planet TV. Infowars says in the filing that it has assets to $0 to $50,000 and liabilities of $1 million to $10 million. Excuse me? Relatives of some of the 20 children and 6 educators killed in the 2012 Newtown, Connecticut massacre sued Jones for defamation, saying they'd been subjected to harassment and death threats from Jones' followers. A judge found Jones liable for damages, and a trial on how much he should pay the families is set for August. He was also found liable for damages in a similar defamation lawsuit by victims' relatives in Texas, where a trial is set to start later this month. Jones has said he believes the shooting did not occur. Jones says he missed the March 23rd and 24th deposition in Austin, home to Joe's and Infowars, because of a medical problem that included vertigo. He said his doctors first thought it was a serious heart issue, but it later turned out to be a sinus infection. Jones paid a $25,000 daily fine for April 1st and another $50,000 daily fine for April 4th. He had then attended a deposition in April 5th and 6th. How many years do you have to go before declaring bankruptcy? Typically there's a few year gap. The fact they are returning his fines is bullshit. Well, he did show within the week, right? So that's why. That's why. Oh no! Reuters photo of this is so fucking funny. Incredible. Incredible. Our right-wing website Infowars on Sunday filed for voluntary Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection and the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of Texas in the face of multiple defamation lawsuits. Chapter 11 bankruptcy procedures put a hold on all civil litigation matters, blah, blah, blah. He said it was a hoax. He offered to pay $120,000 each to of the 13 plaintiffs. Get out of here, Alex. Jones claimed the shooting in which 20 children and 6 school employees were shot dead was fabricated by gun control advocates and mainstream media. What a scumbag, dude. According to Sunday's court filings, Infowars listed its estimated assets to be $0 to $50,000. Wow. What a scumbag, dude. Well, chat, we have a guest waiting in the wing. Come here, buddy. Come on. You know who it is. It's the boy. He's already giving me a high 10. He already knows what I'm trying to teach him hand signals so I don't even have to say anything. Hey, Romeo. Good boy. You figured it out. This is Romeo, the dog. He was taking a nap. And I said, hey, you want to go to work? And he came over. Right? Now lay down. See, he's tired. Now jump up. Dogs are smart, huh? Aren't they? Must be frustrating not to be able to speak. You know what I mean? Why aren't people using wide people high today? I don't know. Now turn around. Sit down. All right, chat. A moment of truth for the boy. The moment of truth. Oh no, chat. He really can't. He doesn't like these treats. He doesn't like these treats. I don't know what to say. It's bad, but he was on fire because he liked the other treat, but this one he just like can't catch. I don't know if he can't see it right, or I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna have to change treats. But anyway, Shaun wrote this, and I want to read you this thread because there's really no way to disagree with it, right? It's just factual. But goddamn, does it trigger the dumbest people on the planet. I wonder about the regular folks who defend the inaction of the U.S. Democratic Party establishment by sharing their flimsy excuses. At what point do a group of politicians who have been working in the system for decades have a responsibility to anticipate the same old roadblocks? The Dems make promises as if unaware of these roadblocks and then act surprised and quit the first time they hit one. And when people complain about being lied to, they get smug responses about not understanding how the system works. Or doesn't. I don't understand how anyone could think the ancient politicians are competent and fit for their jobs, but that have nothing to say when they abandon a campaign promise because something happened that always happens. Either account for the thing or don't make the promise already. If I promise you I'm going to take you to Disneyland, but then my car breaks down en route, that is just an unfortunate letdown. But if I make that promise with the full knowledge that my car breaks down every time I drive it, I just told you a lie, and it'd be silly to defend me. Also, I guess I deliberately refused to fix the car, and I'm just swindling you for gas money, and if by some miracle we did make it to Disneyland, I deliberately crashed into a tree. Metaphor getting a bit thin at this point, though. And this is the reality of what we're facing. First of all, this isn't even true. I think the thing that's really frustrating is I know how the government works. I know how the Senate works. I know how the House works. When the Democrats refused to raise the minimum wage because the parliamentarian, I showed you a time where the Republicans replaced the parliamentarian to do Bush's tax cuts. The parliamentarian can be replaced. That's not the problem. So what is the actual problem? They don't want to do it. Same thing with the filibuster. Oh, the filibuster is stopping us. But you could get rid of the filibuster, and they have countless dozens of exceptions to the filibuster already. They just don't want to do it. So like that is the reality. Is for some reason this really works. I think telling people they know how the government really works and how they're the educated, sophisticated ones is great propaganda for some reason. You would think that somebody who wants good policy to happen wouldn't fall for that, but it really helps give the team, vote blue libs an excuse for nothing ever happening. And they love it. When there are, thanks for the 12 months, man. If Bernie runs, he needs to pick Nina as his VP straight off the bat so that everyone knows up front. I mean, I don't know what picking a VP early does for you, but so it's pretty pathetic. Pretty pathetic shit. All right, so this is something I saw on the Majority Report feed that I wanted to show you. And I gotta say this, chat, I fucking called it. Did I not fucking call it? Pete Buttigieg has been a disaster running the Department of Transportation. Did I not fucking call it instantly? Did I not?
We mentioned on the show yesterday that a Trump-appointed judge who was deemed to be basically unqualified by the bar and yet was appointed anyway after having very little experience. She's in her 30s. Keep that in mind
when Democrats try to place somebody on the Supreme Court and the Republicans talk about experience and qualification.
And LSAT scores? Yeah. Where was this judge's LSAT scores? She was like in her early 30s, essentially, and ruled that because masks don't sanitize you, we don't need to use them, as if there's some sort of sanitization bar as established by legal precedent. It was insane. And so you would think, as the opposition party to an insane Republican party that denies science, that wants people to die of COVID because they were in favor of dropping any and all restrictions that would protect people, because, capitalists, we can't have this anymore. We've got to keep the economy churning. You would think that the Biden administration would come out aggressively against that kind of insane ruling. Well,
this is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You did a great job up here.
Mr. President, should people continue to wear masks on planes?
That's up to them.
Dragon Army says, Mike, it doesn't matter how right you are. It's a matter of who listens to you. Well, the point is, by having all of you point out how I was totally correct about Pete Buttigieg, you make more people listen to me. If the perception is that I'm calling the shots mostly right, that's going to result in more people listening to me in the future. Here's what I said about Pete Buttigieg before he was, right after he was appointed, or when it was clear that he was being talked about to be appointed. This was after Biden won the election. I said, but before Biden was sworn in, it's really disgusting they appointed someone as unqualified as Pete Buttigieg to Secretary of Transportation. It makes clear how little difference there is between Republicans and Democrats. Biden could have picked the high-speed rail expert, transport union president, or civil engineer. Gross. Man, wouldn't it have been great to have a transportation union president as our Department of Transportation head? He might have been able to have some expertise on what was making a shortage in, say, truckers or other workers. Or maybe he would have known how these companies were gouging or how they were remaining idle. He would have actually had they would have had the confidence to make concrete steps. It's a shame.
Are you going to like to appeal the ruling or the ruling that the judge made striking down the mandate?
I haven't spoken.
I'm trying to unionize the grocery store I work in. The lead organizer for UFCW is helping, but it's difficult to form a committee because there's about 500 people who work here and there's a language barrier. Yeah, you definitely need... Is it Spanish, Choco? Is it Spanish that is your other language? See, UFCW should definitely have Spanish-speaking people. Yeah, you need to find somebody who's bilingual to go in there and start finding all the people that would be with you. What do you mean? Pete has a ton of experience with logistics, like that time he did price fixing on bread. Oh, good point.
To the CDC yet. Thank you. All right.
Going here a little bit, Mr. President.
All right, well, then Biden yucks it up with that guy there. That was really it. So he says he hasn't spoken to the CDC yet. It's up to individuals, essentially. But I think he means when he says it's up to them, it's up to the individual airlines. So it's up to individuals on the airlines if they want to wear a mask. Doesn't matter that this is not like a personal choice about what you want to dye your hair color, what your hair color is going to be, if you're going to wear jeans or leggings today. No, this is about a mitigation effort that affects everybody in that enclosed space on the plane. on the bus, on the train, in the Uber, etc. This affects other people. Your masking is not an individual act. And when it comes to the airlines, frankly, the Biden administration has shown a concerning deference to what their requests are, what their preferences are, and that's been epitomized by the way that Pete Buttigieg, as the head of the Department of Transportation, has conducted his business. Matt Stoller of the American Economic Liberties Project, friend of the show, he's been on a few times. Can we pull this tweet thread up? Because it highlights how this is not the bug in the Biden administration as when it comes to dealing with the transportation industry and airplanes.
Not the fake Dig Z says 7 months of solid agitprop diet. Subbing is praxis, right? Hell yeah, it is. That's praxis.
Airlines, rather.
Transportation planning is one of the most technocratic, high expertise, skillful jobs in earning planning. And to successfully run a transportation planning department or firm, the head of the organization usually has to hold dual graduate degrees in urban planning and civil engineering. It's as sophisticated and complex a job as managing something like the Department of Energy would be. I require a PhD in physics. Pure patronage for Buttigieg is a fast track him for president. I mean, he's been a total failure. Transportation failure has what's killed the Biden administration. Inflation, higher prices on transport itself, a total lack of the ability of logistic flows to restore to normal has been devastating for Joe Biden. In fact, I think transportation woes are the #1 crisis for Biden. And he did fucking nothing. He was a loser.
This is the feature. If you want...
I'm not trying to spam. I'm just I feel like this is something other people on the East Coast have thought of. Got a quick question. I used to work at Waffle House. Wage was $190 to $240 an hour, depending on your position, plus tips. Always thought about the potential to unionize, but considering how FEMA has certain regulations about whether or not their restaurants stay open, they even have a chance to unionize? Why wouldn't they have a chance to unionize? There's no law saying Waffle House can't unionize. Of course they could. On Amazon Staten Island. Ooh. Okay, we'll get this next.
Want to know Biden's problem? Consider that Pete Buttigieg is an unmitigated catastrophe at the Department of Transportation, yet there's no criticism at all of his tenure on the Hill or within partisan media. The Dem political machine has no feedback loop to reality. This is, again, Matt Stoller's opinion, but I think I found it pretty compelling.
Of course it's right.
Why do I think Pete Buttigieg is a disaster at the Department of Transportation? No reason. And then he cites this mass cancellation that I talked about a little bit on the show when it was happening, of these airlines. Over the first weekend of April, over 10,000 flights were canceled. And since travel was ticking up again, airlines have basically been actively compromising the customer experience, ripping them off because, frankly, they don't want to hire more people. Stoller continues, the Department of Transportation has authority to regulate unfair methods of competition in air travel as well as consumer deception. This is very broad authority, and literally everyone else is preempted from doing anything. This is the Department of Transportation's authority, and they're choosing not to exercise it. We can scroll down a little bit there. The unwillingness to judge policymakers on actually, he's responding to criticism of this thread, not as relevant. Consumer groups last year met with Buttigieg on a range of issues, including flight cancellations. He has done nothing to address any of their concerns. I suspect this is probably true across much of DOT's portfolio, though I know more about airlines. Here are the priorities listed on the Department of Transportation site. I don't see supply chains on there. DOT is a mess, and we need someone who knew the department to restore some institutional capacity. Buttigieg is smart, but no one's pressing him to do that. Since people don't understand why there are mass cancellations, neither COVID waves nor weather are the real culprit. The lack of redundancy is. Airlines laid off staff instead of retaining them, even though they got bailout money, so this wouldn't happen. And that is the main point there. We're good on that. But he does, when he says that he suspects that this incompetence and deference to industry is probably true across much of the Department of Transportation's portfolio, he is right. He is right, because I found this article from the American Prospect from December that made that same claim, made the claim that it was more broad, as specifically in reference to the supply chain crisis that we were seeing. Getting excited about deliverables would be a marked change for Buttigieg, who has thus far failed to mobilize the sweeping powers of the Department of Transportation and its battalion of sub-agencies to combat a supply chain crisis driven in no small part by deregulation of the transportation sector. The root cause...
Have you seen this? Supreme Court ruled 8-1 against aid for Puerto Rico. Yeah, I saw that. Joe Biden did do something. He forced union PRT workers to do mandatory overtime. Oh, in New York City, Apple Store organizing as well. The organizers, who dubbed themselves the Fruit Stand Workers United, say they have voted on February 21st to affiliate themselves with Workers United, a national labor union that supported the successful unionization efforts of Starbucks employees around the U.S. Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. You love to fucking see it, man. You love to see it. And not only that, you know, like, let's pull this up ourselves. I mean, I mean, it just feels pathetic. It's pathetic. I mean, I called this so long ago, and it just feels bad to be right. It just feels so fucking bad. If I hear deliverables even once, that's a red flag for PMC upper middle class neolib. The guy who wrote this article is probably a dumb nib establishment Democrat. No, it's not. It's not a red flag for PMC upper middle class neolib. It's if somebody says deliverables, that's just talking about reality. Which neolibs rarely ever do. The unwillingness to judge policymakers. People are making fun of Matt's tweet blaming Pete Buttigieg for the pilot shortage and weather events, but Matt was very clear. He holds this view for no reason. Look at these pathetic Democratic apologist losers, man. They are so desperate to pathetically coddle every loser fucking Democrat who fails at their job. Hey, if we're canceling a lot of flights, if we can't get stuff imported into the ports, that is a fact. And you can say, oh, it's not my fault. Your job is to fix it. Stop pointing fingers and get something done, you worthless clown party. The unwillingness to judge policymakers on the actual competence at their job is costly. Buttigieg wasn't qualified to run DOT, but he could nonetheless be learning how to manage transportation systems. He's not, because the elite Dem world coddles him. Consumer groups last year met with Buttigieg on the range of issues, including flight cancelizations. Here are the priorities listed on the DOT's site. Bipartisan infrastructure law, equity, safety, transformation. Honestly, they deserve to lose. They deserve to fucking lose. They do. Since people don't understand why there are mass cancellations, neither COVID waves nor weather are the real culprit. The lack of redundancy is. Airlines laid off staff instead of retaining them, even though they got bailout money so this wouldn't happen. You know the airline that didn't do that, chat? The airline that didn't do that was United Airlines. United Airlines didn't lay off a bunch of staff. And so they're the most profitable airline. And they have almost no cancellations. Barrow isn't even a Dem. He's a self-described centrist. Do you understand why he's defending Pete now? It 100% is a red flag for PMC liver. If you ever worked in a white-collar setting around dumb establishment Dems, they love to use certain buzzwords in corporate jargon like deliverables. No, I mean, deliverables is actually the one thing that is real. I don't know what to say. I birthed my cat. Thanks for the tier 3. I asked if any talk of expanding program to other refugees in Europe, Syria, Afghanistan, etc. Senior official says no. This Ukrainian population is really unique. Most requests for refuge temporary in nature. Oh my God! Bro, we're going to be fighting in Ukraine for 20 years. That's the plan. Different from others who fled and been living in third countries for years, which we forced them to because we wouldn't allow them to come in. Incredible. Where's that? We need that picture from Family Guy. Incredible, man. Also, I am a Democrat, and I want to see Buttigieg succeed. We need a functional transportation system, and we need to deal with our supply chain crisis. The point of this criticism is to prod him toward looking at the problem. You're not defending him by attacking me. DOT Secretary Elaine Chao was really bad. Buttigieg needs to clean up airlines at the very least, and he hasn't. No shit! DOT's enforcement against airlines has collapsed. Elaine Chao, in her final year, 2020, issued just 6 aviation enforcement orders, a record low. How many did Buttigieg issue into 2021? 4. This year, 2. He's worse than a Republican! They ignore even warnings coming from their allies. Biden basically pretended Larry Summers didn't exist last year. How'd that work out? Are you fucking kidding me? Larry Summers is neither an ally nor a serious economist. He's vindictive and corrupt, and he spoke out due to spite. I agree with your general point. Summers is a bad example. Incredible brain. Cam the man, thank you for the tier 1. Doesn't matter if I back it up or not. Dem validators won't pick up on it, so it won't be heard. For example, systemic canceled flights are DOT's responsibility. which you wouldn't know because no one ever points out that Buttigieg is supposed to fix this stuff. He sucks. As Buttigieg eyes a presidential run, his DOT is floundering. Easy to call. And the thing is about the Democrats is, are you a white lib who's incompetent? Promotion! I want to show you this chat because it's just really, really embarrassing, man. It's really, really embarrassing. It's time for us to read the misinformation cope. Matty Yglesias, the misinformation cope. I think this is a very important point. I largely agree with this concept that people think the Democrats are unpopular because of misinformation. I think what makes Democrats popular is when you know about the Democrats and who they are. That's what makes them unpopular and what little they've done. So let's see what Matty thinks. Democrats are misunderstanding their losses with less educated voters. A couple weeks ago, Barack Obama spoke at a University of Chicago seminar on disinformation and the erosion of democracy. As you might expect from a speaker at a seminar on disinformation and the erosion of democracy, he offered the view that misinformation plays a major role in shaping our current problems. In recent years, we've seen how quickly disinformation spreads, especially on social media. This has created real challenges for our democracy. I acknowledge that misinformation exists and that it's bad and that ideally everyone would be well informed, but I also think that the structural biases of media and academia exaggerate this problem. Jeffrey Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, recently declared that disinformation is the story of our age, but this article is just hype for the same conference Obama spoke at, a conference organized in part by The Atlantic. The importance of improving the information ecosystem is conveniently appealing message for Highbrow magazine owned by a wealthy philanthropist, but it's really Obama I'm disappointed in. Yeah, man, that's now you're disappointed in him. You know what I'm disappointed in? Barack Obama, 5 minutes after he got elected, and he jammed every hedge fund manager he could into his administration. Barack Obama was a great politician. Barack Obama was good at getting himself elected. But as far as being a... See, I look at politicians, and when I look at politicians, I don't think who got the most votes, who had the highest approval rating, who got themselves elected. I look at who changed things, who accomplished something, who advanced humanity. And that's what everyone actually looks at in reality. When you open a history book, they don't tell you about all the presidents who just got in there for 2 terms and then left, not changing a goddamn thing. That was Barack Obama. He was a status quo caretaker president. He's a nothing. He's a footnote. And he was a total fraud. Greb says Obama was a fraud in every meaning of the word. Absolutely true. Look at the poll results. What's the best way to stop hate winning? Yeah, exactly. While he's very influential among Democratic Party movers and shakers, he doesn't like to talk about the hard-knuckled aspects of his own approach to politics. And I agree with Michael Slabby that the misinformation focus among Democrats feels like a self-exculpatory cope. That's exactly what it is. It's the Bernie bros. It's misinformation. It's Russia. Russia. It's not we're unpopular. It's not we're failures. It's that we're not fighting in the realms that matter, like the courts and redistricting and state and local politics. No. It's the misinformation. It's not the fact that we stepped on unions. It's not the fact that we didn't structurally change a goddamn thing when we had 60 senators to advance our own party and our own coalition. No. It's just the Facebook. It's Facebook's policies that are the problem. If we could only change Twitter, we would win elections. Democrats are also seemingly preparing to blame disinformation for an ongoing lack of clarity and imagination, for an unwillingness to see their culpability in losing hearts and minds and failing to win them back, for an inconsistent ability to deliver for people. Failure of leadership is never the answer. The Russians, Trump, McConnell, and now disinformation. Never a lack of imagination, vision, organizing, effective long-term investment, being valuable to people, empathy. Or I have a couple more. Structural change. Recognizing that our system is anti-democratic and trying to reform it to be more so. Opening their party. Listening to young people. None of that's on the fucking table. I wish Obama had instead said there's no evidence that conspiracy theories are becoming more prevalent. That deactivating Facebook makes people less knowledgeable about politics. Zephyr calling, thanks for the 10 gifted subs. That's incredibly generous. Can we get some bended knees? Please. You rule. Poorly informed people have always been with us, and that one part of politics is delivering quality governing results, while the other part is meeting people where they are, not pining for some alternate reality where they have totally different beliefs. The self-seductive half-truth of misinformation. Like a lot of dangerous ideas, this desire to blame misinformation contains a kernel of truth. Independents and less educated people are less knowledgeable about politics, and in the 2016 and 2020 cycles, Democrats picked up support from college graduates, largely women in 2016, joined by men in 2020, while losing support from non-graduates, largely white, joined by many Hispanics in 2020. This is to say, industrial arts, thanks to the 2 tier 1s, that Democrats have gained a lot of ground with demographics that correlate with being well informed, while losing ground with demographics that correlate with being poorly informed. It's certainly possible to interpret that trend. We want fingers, thanks to the 5 tier 1s, as suggesting that some people have swung toward Trump because they are misinformed, while others have swung away from him because they are well informed. But recall 10 years ago, the late Rush Limbaugh had a running gag about low information voters based on the true observation that at the time, Republicans were meaningfully better informed about basic political facts than Democrats. That's because in addition to educational attainment, political knowledge correlates with age. Young people are less informed than old people. And with gender, women are less informed than men. 10 years ago, there was a strong tendency for less educated white people to vote Republican. That was offset by Obama's huge margins with black and Latin and working class people. So in the 2012 alignment, Obama voters were not better educated than Romney voters. But women and young people did lean left, while men and old people leaned right, which meant that Obama voters were worse informed than Romney voters. Now, let me just say this about this. This is lib bullshit, and I'll explain it to you in a very quickly. Knowing some, like, how many congressmen there are, or congresspeople there are, knowing how many senators there are, knowing who the vice president is, those are political facts that you either know them or you don't know them. But guess what? They have no clue, if you know what you're talking about public policy. And in fact, there is one type of horseshoe effect. It's on public policy. When you're when you have very low educational attainment, you tend to support social democratic policies. When you have very high educational attainment, you tend to support social democratic policies. It's the middle, it's the muddle, it's the mediocre who are the breeding ground for Republicans. That is the reality. And I don't give a shit whether you support social democratic policies because it would be good for you or because you've studied the evidence and you know that it leads to a better society overall. I don't give a shit what your motivation is for supporting free college. Whether you know that free college would mean a more investment in the human capital of a country and a better productivity and better economic development, all sorts of other evidence, or you have student debt and you wanted to get rid of it. I don't give a shit why you want the good thing, just that you want the good thing. This literally doesn't matter. So if you agree with Rush Limbaugh that Obama won thanks to misinformation, then I'm happy to see you apply that to voters who swung toward Trump. But I think that if you resist Rush's interpretation of Obama's popularity, you ought to resist that interpretation of Trump's. I agree wholeheartedly with this. This is a hot take, but I agree with it. Piss on Reagan, thanks for the 6 months. And Very Polite Vampire, thanks for gifting us sub as well. The fact is that Obama did much better than Joe Biden with two groups of people, poor white people and Hispanic women, who happen to have low levels of political information. But if you take progressive ideas seriously, these are people whose interests we want to be representing. Exactly. Exactly right. I hate to say it in the aftermath. Thanks for the 30 months. And Fisher91, thank you for the 3 months. I hate to say it, but Matty's right here. It's not shield time yet. It's on us to win their votes as Obama did, not to charge them with being insufficiently informed. This applies not just to general ignorance, but also to so-called fake news. A good study by Charles Anglucci and Andrea Pratt shows that all kinds of people are pretty good at telling real stories from fake ones, and the starkest pattern about the inability of voters to identify major news stories is not the generalized death of truth or ideological polarization, but rather its unequal distribution along socioeconomic lines. Less educated people are less knowledgeable and less media literate, and that's not ideal, but Democrats need to read the correlation into the correct direction and try harder to appeal to their values, not write them off as too misinformed to be reached. Here's what a recent Jasmine Ulola piece in the New York Times. Online disinformation hit Latino communities hard ahead of the 2020 presidential election. It came in the form of videos, tweets, and WhatsApp messages, YouTube videos, and the rants of Spanish language radio hosts. It included false reports of widespread violence on the streets of Democratic cities after the murder of George Floyd, QAnon conspiracy theories, and overblown claims of terrorists and criminals crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. In fact, Barn Match, thank you for the tier 1. And Empty in Between, thank you for gifting a sub. And 500 bats from Chaz the Astronaut. Thank you, seriously. One of the things that people don't remember, but I'm old, so I do, is one of the things that people were worried about with nominating Obama was that there was intergroup tension between Latinos and black people, and that people literally thought the Latinos would not vote for a black president. This was an idea that was floating around until Obama won that big election in 2008 and disproved that by the election. People thought of what was known as the Bradley effect was going to happen, that people were, you know, saying they were going to vote for Obama, but they weren't actually going to vote for the black man at the polls. This is about a famous governor's race in California where a black candidate was leading the polls and ended up losing. And people attributed it to a lot of Californians saying they were going to vote for the black guy, but then secretly going and voting against him because of racism. Sir Breenward, thanks for the 5 tier 1s. They didn't want to tell the pollster that they were voting against the black guy because they thought they might look racist. All right. So that was an idea that was floating out there, but ended up not happening. Why Democrats just think Latinos are dumb? Democrats hate Latinos. That's why they don't actually deliver for them. And they hated Bernie Sanders was extremely popular about Latinos. Exactly the type of Latinos that Matty Yglesias is talking about. The casino workers in the Nevada caucus. But you're never going to hear Matty Yglesias. This is, well, don't worry, I'm going to do a takedown of Matty Yglesias. Don't you worry. Are reports of widespread violence on the streets after the murder of George Floyd really an example of online disinformation? I don't think there is a technical definition of when violence becomes widespread. A number of stories in my neighborhood stores had their windows smashed and their inventory stolen. Across the country, the total damage from rioting was 1 to 2 billion, comparable to the damage done in the LA riots of '92. Of course, we're talking about incidents that were spread across dozens of cities rather than concentrated in any one metropolis. So each individual riot was dramatically smaller than the one 30 years ago, but the rioting was much more widespread. I was going to read this whole post and I just got cucked. I just got cucked. He paywalled it. They want my credit card. I'm going to say no. Fucking cucked Mike from PA. I wanted to react to this and show me a 10-foot paywall and I'll show you a 12-point ladder. Oh, beautiful. Oh, they failed. They failed to remove the paywall. Oh, damn. I'm not giving money to Matty Yglesias, but the larger point that I think needs to be made, and what I agree with, is the Democrats don't want to. They like that poor people are leaving the Democratic Party. They want to not have to appeal to poor people. They hate poor people. This is their dream. This is their fucking dream. All right, let's watch the Saudi Arabia roasting of Biden.
States and Saudi Arabia continues to break down. Saudi TV, the official government-backed outlet, recently came out with essentially a comedy sketch where they're attempting to roast Joe Biden for, I guess, sort of being this bumbling old man who doesn't really understand what's going on around him. So I wanted to watch this for you guys and then put a little bit more into context in terms of why they would put something like this out in the first place. So let's go ahead and watch this.
This is from Saudi Arabia. Okay.
Thank you very much. Today, we're going to talk about the crisis in Spain. Yeah, we're going to talk about the crisis in Africa. Yeah, Russia. And I want to talk about the president of Russia, Putin. Yeah, Putin, listen to me. I have very important message to you. The message is, and the president of China. Oh, I didn't finish Russia. No, sir. Thank you to correct me, First Lady. Yeah, thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless.
Thank you all. Hallelujah. Clap to your president. Clap to your president right now.
All right, so that was fucking weird, right? I mean, honestly, just at a surface level, I mean, they kind of got his ass a little bit if the point is just, yeah, Joe Biden has clearly, obviously, throughout the course of his career, as he's getting up there in age, especially over the last couple of years, he's definitely lost a step. I mean, you can go back and look from just like a decade ago when he was Obama's vice presidential candidate, and if you go watch like the debates with Paul Ryan versus how Joe Biden is right now, he's definitely very obviously lost a step, and that's understandable, again, because the dude is like a million fucking years old. But beyond that, beyond just like the
first of all, it's not understandable. He wants to be president. Like people wouldn't tolerate this with their football quarterback. If you can't throw the past 20 yards, you can't be an NFL quarterback. You got to be more cold-blooded about this. If you can't hack it, you shouldn't be the leader of the fucking country. Period. You want empathy? Go to an old folks home. Don't run for the fucking White House.
Surface level of this, and honestly, it's like a C+ comedy
almost
sketch.
said
I've
Free
seen
World.
Plenty of people do way better impressions of both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So you did okay. I guess you kind of got his ass, but really the broader thing here that I wanted to focus on is just the context of why Saudi Arabia would put something out like this in the first place. Okay, so again, this is really just a continuation of the ongoing breakdown in relations between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, and the reasons for that breakdown are pretty much some of the most egregious things that you could possibly imagine. So just to do a little bit of a recap here, if you guys remember back in 2020 when Joe Biden was the presidential candidate, he essentially came out and said that he was going to make Saudi Arabia a pariah state. Okay, he said we are going to treat them as the pariah that they are, and this was coming obviously in the wake of them murdering a Washington Post American resident journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, which the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman had a direct implicated role in perpetuating that murder. So obviously there was a lot of political incentive for him to come out and take this more hardline stance on Saudi Arabia. They are a violent, theocratic, dictatorship. So obviously you should not be cozying up to them as Donald Trump was doing, or even as Obama was doing. Obviously you should start to maybe rethink this entire relationship. And unfortunately, Joe Biden, when he came out and said some shit like this
video is brought to you by
all rhetoric, because we know on the actual substance of how he's treating Saudi Arabia from a policy perspective, or from a foreign policy perspective, that he has essentially not followed through on this promise to make them a pariah state. So just as a reminder here, specifically on the Khashoggi murder, so here from the New York Times, they say Biden won't penalize Saudi Crown Prince over Khashoggi's killing, fearing a relations breach. So essentially, he promised he was going to make them a pariah in a direct response to the murder of Jamal Khashoggi.
Oh, hey, what do you know? Another promise broken. Another promise broken. By the way, chat, if you had to guess, according to the neoliberal PolitiFact website, what percentage of promises would you say that Biden has delivered on? If you had to get a rough estimate, according to the so remember, this is being very generous with the promises kept. What would you say the promise rate is? I see 0, 5%, 4%, 15%, 25%, 10%, 11%. Hey, you guys are pretty good. Biden's promise kept 17%. Now, they give him 0 promises broken because, he's still in his first term, but this is going to be about 80% when he's done. Let me show you the promises they say he's accomplished. Nominate the first black woman to the U.S. Supreme Court, establish new fuel economy standards, work with allies to develop secure and private sector-led 5G networks. God forbid you had government run municipal networks. No. We need to have profiteers with a natural monopoly. Direct federal resources to help prevent violence against transgender women. Increase COVID testing, which he's now cut off. Resume ties with the Palestinian Authority. Whoop the fucking shit. Use the Defense Production Act to produce personal protective equipment, except you don't have to wear it. All this shit doesn't fucking matter. Create a bipartisan commission. Promises kept. He didn't. These are absolute pathetic promises to the point where they literally don't matter. Immediately rescind the Muslim bans, but he kept Title 42, which banned refugees. Restore the White House Directorate for this isn't even crumbs. This is like a crop dusting. This is like somebody walking by you and farting level of delivery. He didn't even he did give a small business bailout for all your rich people who own businesses. He did give them a bunch of money. Many of these are from the very beginning of his term in 2021. I mean, this is just goddamn pathetic. Yeah, he rescinded the Muslim ban, Mike. It's a hard thing to do. This is even barely neoliberalism. And by the way, chat, if Trump was president, he would have done this. He would have done this. So like multiple ones of these promises are literally stuff like these, the most significant two things. Very likely if Trump would have done that too. Total loser.
And then he turns around once he gets in office and he says, well, never mind. We need this, we need these oil reserves from Saudi Arabia, so I'm not going to try to punish Mohammed
bin Salman. The Paris Accords aren't even binding. They're not even binding. They're nothing. Since we're looking at neolib slay bossing, check out Alfreda Schuler doing her post-CIA life. The New Yorker once dubbed Schuler, again citing her position but omitting her name, as the queen of torture, writing that she gleefully participated in torture sessions. Schuler called the description, which found its way into multiple media reports, false and a caricature. She believes a male operative would not have been described in the same way. I got that title because I was in the arena, she said. In fact, I raised my hand loud and proud, I don't regret it at all. A CIA official implicated in the worst abuses of the war on terror left the agency last year. She is a life coach. Oh my God.
Committing this murder. So we saw him basically immediately backtrack on the specifics of the Khashoggi situation, but even broader than that, we saw this on the situation in Yemen, because not only did Joe Biden on the campaign trail promise to hold MBS accountable for murdering a U.S. resident and Washington Post journalist, but on top of that, he also promised, if you guys remember, to end the war in Yemen. Now, has the war in Yemen ended? No. And you might turn around and say, well, that's a war that's being, conducted between the Houthis and Saudi Arabia. What role does the United States have to play in this?
Yeah, he rejoined the Paris Climate Agreement and then promised to increase oil production. He repealed regulations against emissions. Literally, he's allowing refineries to pollute more so they could produce more gas. That's exactly what's happening right now. He's begging Saudi Arabia to pump more oil, and they're not even taking his phone calls.
We play a direct offensive role in this war by our diplomatic, our military, our logistical support for Saudi Arabia's military. So just as a reminder here, remember when Biden came out and he basically said...
People moan about gas prices. And by the way, Brit boy, no offense. Maybe you're British. But in America, you literally cannot exist in 95% of the country without a personal car. Or you're spending 5 hours a day commuting, even like 20 miles. You literally cannot exist in America as an adult without cars. So when people complain about gas prices, they have to complain about gas prices because they need a fucking car. There isn't some efficient electric tram or trolley or bus or subway or regional rail in 95% of the country. You told get fucked.
We're no longer going to be selling Saudi Arabia offensive weapons capabilities, okay? And I told you guys right as they made that announcement that
wasn't Biden supposed to be a big train guy?
There was no such
that was
thing
a lie.
as only selling them defensive weapons for a war.
He pretended to like Amtrak so he could get money, and he could put Hunter Biden on the board of directors for Amtrak. Hunter Biden was on the board of directors for Amtrak. If you want to understand just how corrupt and pathetic American Railway is, Hunter Biden, fresh out of getting kicked out of the military for using cocaine, he got, by the way, Hunter Biden got a commission into the military, an OCS commission at advanced rank. I believe he was a captain. He got admitted to the military at like lieutenant or like captain level. I can't remember. I think he was in the Navy, so it was lieutenant grade. And he got kicked out because he got caught doing blow. And normally when officers get caught using hard drugs, they go to prison. Normally. But when they are Joe Biden's son, they get out of the military and immediately get put on the board of Amtrak. That is your corrupt loser Democrat.
Offensive, such as the one in Yemen. So just as a reminder here from In These Times, Biden is wrong. There is no such thing as defensive Saudi weapons in the war on Yemen. Biden wants to put a...
And by the way, I don't care if people do blow, except for the people whose parents created the drug war. If your parent did the drug war, I think you should get life in prison for getting secondhand marijuana smoke. Okay? But Mike, the sins of the father. Yeah, nah, fuck you. In this case, sins of the father definitely applies. If your dad is running around putting black people in prison while you're literally smoking crack, you don't get 5 times in rehab.
Face on U.S. support for the war, we shouldn't let him. So, of course, Joe Biden continued to give them the weapons support, to give them the military and logistical and information support to continue this war. And not only has he not been opposing it vehemently or telling them to end the war, end the offensive bombing campaigns or the blockade, but he's actively aiding and abetting in this ongoing war, which has killed so far over 400,000 Yemenis, most of them civilians, most of them actually starved as a result of this ongoing Saudi-led blockade of the Hodeidah port in the western portion of Yemen. So not only is he not, pushing for an end to this war, but he's actively aiding and abetting it. And all you need to know to understand the leverage that Biden has over Saudi Arabia is look to where they're getting their military supplies from. So basically their entire air force is being, which is what they're conducting these air raids on Yemen with. Essentially their entire air force is maintained upwards of 90% of it from the United States and the United Kingdom. So us and our closest ally in the UK are directly responsible for the large bulk of what enables Saudi Arabia to conduct this war in the first place. So if you wanted to end the war, you could have just said, instead of half-assing it and saying, oh, I'm going to end offensive support, you could have just ended all military support to Saudi Arabia unless they end the war in Yemen. It could have just been that simple, and you start to apply that diplomatic pressure, you start to apply that international pressure to end something which is considered to be the single worst humanitarian crisis on the planet right now. And, of course, you feel for all of these different situations that are also happening simultaneously, right? Afghani people are being starved simultaneously by the Joe Biden administration. Ukrainian people are being invaded by Vladimir Putin, and obviously those situations are catastrophic, but there's a reason why the situation in Yemen is considered to be the single worst humanitarian crisis on the planet, and that's because, again, over 400,000 people have died as a result of this war so far, and hundreds of thousands of more people, most of them, again, innocent civilians, are set to die in the immediate future if this war and the blockade that Saudi Arabia is enforcing continues. And so this is what Joe Biden has on his hands right now. He has blood on his hands from this war, both in the abstract way that he's supporting this ongoing blockade and the ongoing offensive operations, but also, I mean, we're literally selling them weapons that are being used to go bomb innocent Yemeni men, women, and children. I mean, this is just a fact. We saw this from that Amnesty International report that came out, that weapons that were given to Saudi Arabia, sold to them by Raytheon, which is the company where Biden's chief of the Pentagon, Lloyd Austin, recently sat on the board of and got $1 million payout as he left Raytheon. I mean, this is the same company that's then turning around and getting a multi-million-dollar weapons sale to sell weapons to a theocratic, violent dictatorship that is conducting a genocide in Yemen. I mean, again, the situation here is as clear as possible. So Joe Biden is simultaneously not really cozying up to Saudi Arabia, rhetorically at least, and he's kind of pissing them off in that sense, which could motivate them to come and put out a comedy sketch like this in the first place. But also on the substance of it, while rhetorically you're pushing them away, you're also simultaneously doubling down on the exact same policies that are supporting them. So it's like, on the one hand, you commend his rhetoric, but if it's just empty rhetoric, then it's fucking useless because you're not improving the conditions for innocent Yemeni civilians that are facing this ongoing offensive campaign and blockade. So,
I mean, like, that's exactly the situation that we're facing. I think we should start it off with the Ukrainian coverage because I've kind of really ramped down our coverage of Ukraine over the past couple weeks because of the stalemate and, nothing much new to report. I've heard some, we had that evidence yesterday that the U.S. is running out of fucking javelins and that Ukraine is consuming them like fucking gangbusters. So that may be a thing. Funny, I never saw Glenn Greenwald upset that libs of TikTok were doxing teachers all over the place, but it's incredibly upset over the owner of the page getting exposed. That's because he's corrupt. I regret to inform you that Glenn Greenwald is corrupt. Progressive Canuck, thanks to the tier 1 for 18 months. And when I say corrupt, he's taking money from Peter Thiel, who is one of the worst right-wing goon billionaires that exists. Not there's a shortage of those. I mean, there's nothing really more to say. So let's get going. Then we'll talk about libs of TikTok later because it's kind of funny. Hey dang, Techno, welcome back. Twitch break. Why would you have a Twitch break? Why would you have a Twitch break? You have one of the most incredible streamers on the entire platform at your fingertips. How could you ever take a break? All right, let's keep going.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia has begun what he called the battle for the Donbass. After spending days regrouping, Russian troops now appear to be engaging in a full-scale ground offensive along a 500-kilometer front in Ukraine's east and south. After suffering setbacks around the capital Kyiv, the Kremlin declared its main goal was the capture of the Donbass region in the east. But in his nightly address, President Zelensky vowed to defend the territory.
We can now state that Russian troops have begun the battle for the Donbass, for which they have been preparing for a long time. A significant part of the entire Russian army is now concentrated on this offensive. No matter how many Russian troops are driven there, we will fight. We will defend ourselves, and we will do it every day. We won't give up anything Ukrainian.
Meanwhile, the western city of Lviv has been hit by multiple Russian rocket attacks. Missiles destroyed buildings and killed at least 7 people, the first civilian death in the city, which is near the Polish border. In the south of the country, Ukrainian troops holding out in Mariupol's enormous Azovstal steel plant say they will fight to the end, as Russia claims it's nearing victory in the besieged port city.
Russian missiles raining down on Ukraine. Russia says it's aiming at military targets in a campaign to weaken Ukrainian defenses. But the strikes also kill civilians. In Lviv alone, at least 7. The owner of this service station found 4 of his employees dead in the ruins of his shop.
I was planning to go to work when my colleagues called. They told me that there had been an explosion and that there was a fire. The worst part, of course, are the victims.
I mean, like, it's so batshit insane to me that Ukrainians are still going to their work at a tire shop and shit. And it just shows that human beings have this incredible resilience, but also I don't know what to say, kind of this status quo bias that's so intense. If you were trying to hire someone to move to Ukraine and work, you'd have to pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And these people are just chilling as rockets are raining down. It's fucking crazy, man.
I jumped in my car and was here in 10 minutes, and I saw it with my own eyes.
While attacks in Lviv have been rare, in Mariupol, they've forever changed the face of the city. Ukraine says at least 21,000 people have been killed here.
Mariupol has undergone extremely heavy destruction as a result of the rocket, bomb, and artillery fire that Russia is conducting round the clock.
I wanted to just show you this, because this was Mariupol before the war. And it's kind of wild. Okay, calm down. It's kind of wild to see the city. So you have Mariupol has that big steel plant right over here. And it's just been completely wrecked. Just totally wrecked. And here's the steel mill. Just totally wrecked. Now it's a ruin.
But the Russian army has failed to seize Mariupol completely. All thanks to the courage of those units, both the Ukrainian armed forces and other military formations that are there.
Those holdouts are making what could be their last stand here in the vast Azovstal industrial zone. With them are civilians, including children, encircled and low on food. They know that if Mariupol falls, Russian forces tied up here will be free to move on to other targets.
And the thing about the eastern Ukraine is it's very flat. It's like Kansas. And so when Russian forces are not tied up in urban warfare, it's going to be a hell of a lot harder to stop them. You know, it's not like Afghanistan or Vietnam with extremely rough terrain. It's relatively flat over there, and Ukrainian resistance has been strongest where they can use urban terrain for cover and concealment. And so it's been kind of incredible how long this resistance has lasted.
Such as the town of Rubizhne, now on the front line and under constant shelling. This woman lives in a nearby village, or what's left of it. She describes what it's like being in no man's land.
We don't even know where the shelling comes from. We wait for it from there, thinking that the Ukrainian army will protect us, but then it comes from there. There's shelling from all directions.
Elsewhere in Ukraine's east, soldiers prepare to hold the line against whatever the Russian army throws at them.
Our motivation is our home, the motherland. We can't take a single step back. We can't retreat. That's the whole secret of our work.
And with Ukraine's president saying Russia's long-awaited offensive has begun, that work may have entered a deadly new phase.
Dino Zudu says the largest open field tank battle in history was in Kharkiv, and this will get ugly for the civilian. I mean, it's already too late for that.
Let's get the latest
destroyed,
from DW correspondent
that was just
Matthias Bullinger in the Ukrainian capital. Welcome, Matthias. What are you hearing about this Russian assault on the east?
Yeah, the Ukrainian authorities have established that this was the beginning of the assault. It's mainly coming from the north, from the town of Izium. That's one town that's in between Donbass and Kharkiv. And it looks like the aim would be to move south from there and then cut off the forces that are east of that. Yeah, we don't know, of course, what is going to happen and how well the Ukrainian army is prepared. But what we do know is that they have expected this for a long time and that they have tried to prepare as well as possible for quite a few weeks now. And all this discussion about heavy weaponry that we've been hearing, the delivery of new weapons, all this was meant to fight back an assault on Donbass from the Russian side.
Right. And what of Mariupol? We've been following events there for weeks, and the Pentagon says it has seen a concentration of airstrikes and artillery there.
Yeah, we know that the last parts of the Ukrainian army that are still in the city are in this steelworks, this gigantic steelworks that was a symbol of the city, and they are staying there. There's a huge bunker underneath, a system of tunnels, and civilians are also hiding there. What we've been hearing, but it's unconfirmed, is that many of these civilians are the relatives of these soldiers because they are afraid that they might be a target for the Russian army as well.
Oh, yeah.
It seems that the army is still there in this very small part of town, and it's heavily bombed. We've seen pictures, but for the moment, it's as it has been a war of attrition, a very cruel war of attrition in Mariupol.
Right. And how likely is it that Ukrainian forces will be able to defend Mariupol and keep the Russians out?
Okay. Then he became an asshole.
Well, the only way to do that would be another offensive coming from another side. And
I'm interviewing some employees at Solar Montana, solar panel installer company, for an environmental science final project. Have most of my questions ready to go. I was wondering if you have any interesting questions or tips that you could provide me from your experience with interviews. It might be interesting to touch on like public policy. Is Montana's public policy conducive to private investment in solar? Do they allow net metering? Is there an extra fees for having a solar connection? Does the regulatory regime harm, or is there state funds for investing in renewable energy, or are there additional fees and taxes that you have to pay? That would be the kind of interesting stuff for me, is like, how is public policy helping, hindering, or neutral on the provision of and development of renewables in Montana?
Opening a corridor, breaking the blockade of the city. We haven't seen any offensive in that direction. We haven't seen any preparations for that.
Good take. This is why I follow you.
So it seems that the Ukrainian army is not able to do that at the moment.
And civilians, of course, caught up in all this. How are they dealing with this increase in hostilities?
What's up, Acid Burn?
The Ukrainian Authorities have called upon civilians to leave these areas.
99% of your
Donbass
viewers
that
are Hasan viewers? Nah, it's like 80%. But I also encourage Hasan. You know, I also promote Hasan. I'm positive toward Hasan.
Likely to be the theater of the next escalation. We have also seen that there were trains to bring out people. We don't know how many civilians are left there,
Crystal
but from what we've seen in the
Sagar and Jimmy Dore have all been buzzing Chris Small's ear for months now. And it's no state secret that both the breaking points of Jimmy Dore show audience platforms reach maximum engagement when AOC becomes the target of their attacks. Exactly.
Before, what we've seen in Mariupol and north of Kiev is that this is a war that spares no one,
viewers. He's been gone for 3 days.
It can be extremely cruel on civilians as well. So most people would probably be well advised to follow this advice by the government.
Okay, thank you for that, Matthias Bullinger in Kiev. Well, Russia, shifting the focus of its offensive to the Donbass, has seen many people in other war-torn parts of Ukraine return to their homes or what's left of them. DW correspondent Rebecca Ritter has travelled to the city of Irpin, where residents have started to rebuild, despite the constant fear that the calm may not last.
One thing that strikes you when you enter Irpin is the silence. These once bustling streets now scorched and deserted. Then sometimes the silence is broken by the sound of people trying to put their lives back together.
There's no putting lives back together now.
Around 300 square meters of roof is missing above 4 of the apartments. There's nothing but the blue sky above.
That apartment building is fucking...
Olga is the caretaker of these 82 flats, and she lives in one up the top.
My apartment is in this part of the building that was damaged by missiles.
She stayed right through the occupation to try to save them from Russian soldiers taking them over, but was...
Are you fucking nuts? Honestly, folks, this is batshit. I mean, this lady's incredibly brave, but so brave to the point where it's like, what? Why are you trying to pretend? This is the logic of capitalism. She finally has some tiny little piece of an apartment that's hers. And so she's going to go down, she's going to die over some shit apartment?
Helpless to stop the missiles.
For now, it is in this state. The house is uninhabitable until we rebuild it.
Next door to Olga, another group with a similar story. They tell me this wasn't the first time they've had to flee one of Putin's wars.
Many live here as a last resort, do you understand? Many of us are from Donbass. We came here from war, just to simply live, and war came here after us. We are peaceful people. We don't want anything bad, we just want to live.
Are we pro-Russia or pro-Ukraine here? I am what's known as pro-humanity. I think that on net, the war against Ukraine is an illegal, aggressive war under international law. It's pretty clear you can't support that. But I also don't think that celebrating and treating Ukraine's resistance like it's a video game is fucking helping anyone. And we're trying to understand the human toll of war and how we can navigate through this to achieve some sort of settlement, some sort of peace so this can end. Because it's fucking destroying the world, by the way. In case you didn't notice, it's not even confined just to Ukraine. Ukraine is a major producer of wheat and food. Russia is a major producer of food and natural gas and oil, especially as a net exporter. We're looking at massive inflation, massive energy crises, recession, and the human toll. It's fucking terrible. Also, I have the cube.
Most important thing is that it doesn't happen again. Putin could come back at any time, even tomorrow.
Their building was also badly damaged by rocket fire. One woman shows me where her flat used to be.
This was my bedroom, and there was a balcony behind it. And now there's no balcony there at all. My things were there, like a little oasis, and now it's gone.
Russian soldiers may have left Irpin, but this is a city that's been left in ruins. There isn't a building we can see that doesn't at least bear some scars of the war, and many are ruined beyond repair. And while the physical clean-up is underway, the emotional scars will take a lot longer to heal. For many who fled when the war broke out, they have little left to come back to. But for those who stayed behind, many will
If the war comes again, I will survive in any case. I will always survive, because I have a bear and he protects me.
I still get frightened by every loud noise. I don't know if it will ever go away, but for now, that's how I am.
The not-so-silent trauma that may live on in their lives forever.
Jesus. All right, chat. I have to show you something because it is one of the most cringe fucking things I've ever seen. It's so fucking cringe. Actually, I want to go back. No, it's not this one. I actually want to go. I want to go back because it's so fucking cringe. You just kind of saw it. It was in my recommended. Malcolm Nance, one of MSNBC's live commentators, has left America and gone to fight in Ukraine. Jesus Christ. Now, here's what I'll say. As CNN was doing Azov propaganda on Don Lemon's show, I would like to encourage every reporter who wants World War III to follow Malcolm Nance's example.
Good evening, everyone. We begin the readout tonight with yet another escalation of Putin's war in Ukraine. Late today, President Zelensky said that Russia has begun an all-out offensive in the east. In his latest video, the Ukrainian leader said that the Russian military has begun the battle for Donbas. It's something Ukraine has been preparing for, a new phase of the war that could see up to 3 times as many Russian troops in the Donbas region. That region includes the city of Mariupol, which Russia needs in order to forge a land corridor to Crimea. The city is besieged. At least 100,000 people remain without access to food and water. But Ukrainian soldiers are still holding on as Russian forces swarm the city. The Ukrainians rejected Russia's proposal to spare their lives if they would stop fighting. Meanwhile, Russia is not in full control of the city yet. We are learning more about the treatment of Ukrainians in places Russia has occupied, however, like in Irpin, where new drone video shows dozens of graves. Police say that investigators have examined 269 dead bodies in the city. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin is rewarding his soldiers accused of war crimes in Bucha, giving them an honorary title and praising their special merits, mass heroism, and courage. And the city of Kharkiv is still under attack, with at least 2 civilians killed in shelling today. Residents there are evacuating, but one woman told Reuters that it's futile if all of Ukraine is under attack anyway.
Эвакуироваться, во-первых, куда? Это раз. По всей Украине бьют. Вы видите, и во Львов сегодня прилетело, и в Днепр прилетело, везде. Куда меня приглашают, это в Херсон моя подруга. А он оккупирован. К этим гнидам в оккупацию я не поеду. Даже не буду прятаться в оккупации от них.
She's referring to missiles that struck the western city of Lviv, a haven for displaced Ukrainians and refugees on their way out of the country. Lviv is also a supplies and logistics hub, where the city
right-wing YouTuber Coach Red Pill is dead? From what? From what? Holy shit. Oh my God. We may have to look into this.
Fatalities since the beginning
it's
of the war.
It's just Twitter rumors
Lviv
right
hit
now.
Close to home today with my colleague, the great Ali Arouzi, and friend of
But
the
it's
show,
from Max
Malcolm Nance,
Blumenthal.
seeing the missiles rush by as they conducted an interview.
Ukraine's unique territory.
Is that going down?
Jesus Christ.
But I've never seen a fast mover. I'm wondering whether that was a cruise missile. Did you see the aircraft?
No.
Are we in an air raid?
Yes. Yeah, we are. We had the air raid. So there's another coming.
Wait, there'll be 3. Stand by. Striking to the west, that's 2.
What
We
was
should get
that
at least
plane?
1 more. That wasn't a plane, it was a cruise missile.
That was a cruise missile?
Yeah. Wait for 1 more. They're fired in 30-second intervals. They fire them in 30-second intervals. Smoke.
There we go.
Stand by. 3, cruise missile, caliber.
Look.
Stand by. 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11,
Yeah, there
12,
it is. There's the
13,
smoke.
13.
There's the smoke.
That's 3.
So 3 cruise missiles.
Yeah.
Joining me now from Lviv is
Like, have you actually heard of the conspiracy theory that Obama is actually running the government? Biden is a puppet. Obama and some dude from the Muslim Brotherhood are pulling on the strings. What are they trying to do? They're not succeeding. They're just losers. Why can't people just know that libs are loser fucks and they can't get anything done and they're just kind of feckless
NBC News correspondent Ali Arouzi. And Ali, that is harrowing footage. You know, we had come to think of Lviv as the safer place, at least the safer place, because it is so far to the west. What does it mean that Russia would strike there? I mean, literally, in the middle of your interview, there are those cruise missiles flying overhead.
Hi, Joy. That's right. I mean, look, you could hear in the interview, the one that we actually saw, the second one, it was so big, I thought it was an airplane. So that's the last thing we were expecting there. And then you saw that thump. And of course, throughout the beginning of this conflict, the outskirts of Lviv have been hit. They've hit fuel depots and airplane factories, but never the center of the city. This was a very built-up area full of apartments, houses. And it was done at 8:30 in the morning when people are going about their daily routine. Now, the Russians said in a statement that they hit a warehouse where ammunition from the west was coming in from, but they didn't say that they hit an auto repair shop. And this is the first time that they've killed people here in Lviv. 7 people were killed in that strike. Amongst the injured was a 3-year-old child that had escaped from Kharkiv, only to be injured by a Russian missile here in what was supposed to be a safe zone. And we've seen waves and waves of displaced people coming here, looking for sanctuary, looking for refuge in Lviv, but they're no longer finding that here. You speak to Ukrainians all through the day today, and they don't say, will Lviv be hit again? They ask, when will Lviv be hit again? So that Putin has really broadened his canvas of attacks, and he's made it very clear that there is no more sanctuary in this country. So people are very on edge here. They were shaken up before this happened when the outskirts of the city was hit. Now they are really frightened that they could be a target in this war here in Lviv.
And, you know, it is pretty remarkable. I mean, is the idea, and is what you're hearing on the ground, that Russia is expanding because they don't seem to have the capability, to be blunt, to wage war throughout this massive country. They seem to have been, at least up until the last couple of weeks, focusing on the east, on trying to sort of create this land bridge to Crimea. Does it feel, at least as you're there in Lviv, that they've changed that plan and are again trying to take the whole country?
I'm not sure if they're trying. I mean, Malcolm will be able to speak to this much better than I can, but I'm not sure they'd be able to take the country. So as they're botching their attack more and more, they hold on to none of the major cities here except Kherson. The Ukrainians are still in control of much of their land. So they keep terrorizing the populations, as we've seen in Bucha, in Irpin, in Hostomel, now here in Lviv. So that tactic is, I think, is to make people very frightened here, to make the Ukrainian people capitulate and say, we've had enough of these bombs raining down on us. But if anybody has been to this country, the Ukrainians are in no mood to capitulate. They're in no mood to give up even an inch of their land. Even Zelensky said if those soldiers in Mariupol are killed, a deal is off the table. So they are determined at whatever cost to hold on to their land, hold on to their sovereignty, and look after each other here in Ukraine.
Ali Arouzi, please be safe, my friend. Really appreciate you in Lviv. Much appreciated. And joining me now from a secure location in Western Ukraine is Malcolm Nance, Executive Director of the Terror Asymmetrics Project. He is fighting with the International Legion of Territorial Defense of Ukraine. And Malcolm, we just watched that video of you, and Ali Arouzi was attempting to interview you for us to get more information on what you're doing. We saw those cruise missiles fly overhead. So explain to us why you are there and what you are doing.
Well, as you know, I spent quite a bit of time here in the pre-war period. And when the invasion happened, I had friends who were in Donetsk, who were in the Ukrainian army, who were writing to us and telling us, we're not going to survive tonight. We've been hit 500 times. You know, these are graduates of Defense Language Institute. These are my friends. And, you know, as the more I saw of the war going on, the more I thought, I'm done talking. All right. It's time to take action here. So about a month ago, I joined the International Legion here in Ukraine, and I am here to help this country fight, you know, what essentially is a war of extermination. This is an existential war, and Russia has bought it to these people, and they are mass murdering civilians. And there are people here like me who are here to do something about it.
And we have some video here. This is some video that was shot by Ali's team of yourself with some supplies and the things that you are working on while you're there. We know that
he's behind the fucking desk. He's like every Redditor. He's like, okay, I want to go to Ukraine. I think I could really do good at massaging the soldiers' feet, providing pets, Maybe I could use my laptop at a desk. He's got a nicer desk in Ukraine than I do at home in America. Incredible. Incredible. The delight in acting in bad faith. Like live Malcolm Nance fighting the Russians. Okay, so if he can get a picture of him behind a desk, why is he on MSNBC in full kit with a gun? Is he on the front line or is he behind the desk? What is this? What is this? Why is he talking to MSNBC with like grainy footage in full kit? Like better chair than me, better desk than me. Like what's happening here? He went to DLI, good chance he's intel. What intel does he have?
While you're there, we know there are about 20,000 people from 52 countries that are currently in Ukraine and have been there from the start of the war. What are international troops like yourself? What are you all
tasked to do? What is he getting out of his bag? This is good.
Well, we are here for one
armor?
purpose and one purpose only, and that is to protect the innocent people of Ukraine from this Russian aggression. And you know, it's not a conventional war, Joy. Even though you have two armed forces going head to head here, what you have is you have another group. I won't even refer to the Russians as an army, just using mass heavy weapons that are used in combat against civilians. They are destroying infrastructure. And then you find that they go to the cities and they massacre men, women, and children. And that is the fundamental reason everyone is here. The International Legion
is literally
a
what we do.
multinational.
We do the same shit. We had death squads in Afghanistan. We bombed the shit out of Fallujah. We shot men, women, and children down in the streets. We would have checkpoints, and they would have signs in Arabic that would say, stay back 500 feet. And if someone drove their car too close, they'd get fucking ventilated. What the fuck is he talking about?
Force.
Yemen,
it is men
too.
and women. There are, thousands here who are here to protect this country. And for the most part, we really have to assist them in any way to stop this. And so I've decided I came here to assist them, with the skills that I have myself.
And we know that there is a tradition of Americans and others going overseas to assist in wars overseas. Eugene Bullard is somebody who people think of in that way as an African-American young man, 19 years old, went over and fought in 2 world wars. So we know that there is a tradition of doing this. And I wonder for you, do you feel that, foreigners stick out wherever they are? People know that you clearly are not Ukrainian when they see you. Do you think that poses any special danger to the people who are not Ukrainian who are there?
No, it doesn't, because the war that's being waged here is being waged against everybody. Look, they're not going around hunting for American flag patches or to see who's black, who's Asian, who's Latino. We are a part of the Ukrainian armed forces. We are brothers and sisters with the Ukrainian army. And that being said, we are fighting side by side, elbow to elbow with them. The Russians, on the other hand, they barely, except for when they're doing these offensives and moving with armor forces down these highways, they're barely attacking the Ukrainians. They're maintaining a line, but their emphasis seems to be the mass murder of civilians, which is against all laws of war. These are war crimes. So believe me, the International Legion here, which is a viable, strong combat force, which is out on the line. No one's going around asking whether, if you're Asian or you're Catholic or you're Jewish, whether you're actually helping the people of Ukraine. It's
really wild. People don't understand what kind of violence is just normal in war. It's not that it's normal or that it's acceptable, but this is what happens. There's no such thing as a clean war. How do people still think the laws of war? The laws of war have been tremendously undermined by the United States, refusing to have our forces be subject to them. So not a surprise that the Russians don't think their forces are subject to them either.
For the help. And I'm grateful to be here. I'm glad that I can help my friends. And I don't have to listen to them talk about how many children...
You know what? I'll say this about it. You know what? I'm glad he's in Ukraine. I really am. I like to see this. I really do like to see this. Someone putting their money where their mouth is. Sure, he may be in the rear with the gear. Sure, he may not... This may be a LARP, and he may be, dressing up for the camera, not actually in combat. That's all true, but I'm glad he's in Ukraine. I'm glad that he put his money where his mouth is. He didn't just cheerlead for America to go to World War III. He actually put his own ass relatively on the line. You know what? That's cool. Good job, man. I wish everybody who argued in favor of American escalation in Ukraine put their money where their mouth was and went to Ukraine. The word around town in San Diego is that Nance is a former SEAL. I know Malcolm Nance was naval intelligence, often does need appearances from windowless room in Coronado, California, has been associated with SEALs naval intelligence for decades. I don't think he looks too round to be an instructor for buds, my dude. Looks a little bit chubby. I don't think he's a fucking SEAL instructor.
Were killed that day. We're going to try to put a stop to it.
Oh, here we go, chat. Why the IMF and World Bank is important in supporting Ukraine. Well, thank you, MSNBC. I needed more defense of the IMF. Oh, this will be good. I can't wait to see this.
Professor of history at Yale University, Timothy Snyder. His best-selling book On Tyranny is available today as an expanded
morning
audiobook.
show.
Also joining us, retired U.S. Air Force officer Sarah Krebs. She's a professor in the Department of Government at Cornell University and a non-resident senior fellow at the Brookings Institute.
Oh, I can't. This is great.
I'll start with you. I'm just wondering, it's hard to stop the Russians in their tracks. Is there any leverage left at all in terms of sanctions?
We need more neocons.
I have to say, I couldn't agree more with the earlier conversation that I think sanctions haven't been terribly effective.
He put his money where his mouth is, but about a month ago, weren't folks claiming dummies on Reddit stupid and misguided for signing up for a meat grinder Foreign Legion? Listen, I don't know what the combat situation is for the Foreign Legion, but when media personalities that cheerlead war go to the war themselves, I say good. I didn't say he was going to win.
The goals for sanctions are quite steep. I don't see that that's going to be terribly effective. I do think that this new military package is a way of supporting the Ukrainian military in a way that they can now keep kind of clawing back. And I agree with Joe, too, that this is just the beginning. I don't think even if these cities fall, I think this is just the beginning. We've seen 20 years of the U.S. trying to fight against insurgents. And I think...
Wow. They're trying to put you... This is the goal. They are open about it. American policy people are bitter that the U.S. got sucked into 20 years of conflict, and now they want to put our geopolitical rivals into 20 years of conflict. Incredible. Ukraine is going to be a smoking ruin. Holy shit.
We've seen from the Ukrainian military that they are very resilient, and now they will be even better resourced and better armed.
Professor Snyder, good morning. Jonathan Lemire here. You've obviously written about tyranny and lessons learned that we could learn from this moment here in Eastern Europe. Talk to us about what this next phase of the war could look like, and to our discussion a moment ago, even if Russia were to, quote, win and take that land bridge in the East,
I can't wait to see
what
who
does
he
that
says
look
is a
like
tyranny
going forward, the difficulty for them to hold it, and how that could really rally Ukrainian resistance that much more?
Yeah, so number one, I appreciate the question, Jonathan, about the larger stakes, because what we have before us is an example of a tyrannical empire trying to destroy a flawed but nevertheless democracy. That is the story here, and that story is directly connected to how the war has played out. The Ukrainians have fought this war in a decentralized way, with communities supporting soldiers, whereas the Russians have fought it in a very vertical way, with soldiers obeying commands from a great distance. And we've seen how that works itself out on the battlefield. Mariupol, which you've been discussing, is very important as a symbol because the Ukrainian nation is holding together. The troops that have held Mariupol for so long know that they're doing so to pin down the Russians so that other Ukrainian troops can do better, so that other Ukrainian cities won't be pounded so hard. And they're aware that their sacrifice has this larger meaning. As far as the war to come, what we're going to see is a much more concentrated Russian offensive against Ukrainians who now have no mystique whatsoever about the Russian army and who are now better supplied and who, above all, have better morale and know what they're fighting for. So it'll be interesting to see how things are going to go for the next few weeks. It's going to be horrible, but I also think the way we should be thinking about this is helping Ukrainians to prevail. We want this to be as short as possible in order for there to be peace. For it to be as short as possible, we have to support the Ukrainians in every way they ask, and in some ways we think up ourselves.
Professor Snyder, good morning. As someone who has studied tyrants as part of his career and has written this best-selling book and now an expanded version of it that gets into this Ukraine question, I won't ask you to try to get into Vladimir Putin's mind. That's a fool's errand, of course. But what should we know about tyrants, in particular this tyrant, that might be informative and instructive as we try to see where he's headed, what he might settle for, and what he wants in the end?
I appreciated the point earlier about logistics eating up strategy, but there's something which sometimes lies behind all of it, which is ideology. Mr. Putin believed that Ukraine would fall within 3 days because he really did believe that Ukrainians are just Russians waiting to be told that they are. That's the underlying ideology to all of this. Now, being a tyrant, he can't admit that he's made a mistake. He can't lose face that way. So his only choice is to double down, which is what we're now seeing in the Donbass. Being a tyrant, the only thing which is going to matter to him, the only thing which is going to trump his ideological commitment is the feeling that perhaps he himself is threatened. And the only way to get to that subjective feeling is for the Ukrainians to do well on the battlefield. That's the only way that this can come to an end, for him to feel that pressure directly.
I think one of the, I mean, this is probably some of the worst analysis you could come up with, because Putin is the product of a long line of American missteps and overreach. Our shock doctrine, the way that the IMF ruthlessly exploited the resources and state property of former Eastern Bloc countries, and helped foment a feeling of nostalgia and resentment over the West's domination of these formerly proud countries, and help build through active support the right wing and undermine the economy with neoliberal shock doctrine. The idea that if we just get Putin to do a thing, it's all going to fall away is some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen. It's far more likely that Putin is replaced by a harder line guy if there's failure in Ukraine. Then there is some sort of idea that there will be some flourishing, liberal awakening that overthrows this government. That's just absolute babble. No one ever wants to die for liberalism, okay? That ended hundreds of years ago. No one's dying for liberalism anymore, okay? You know what liberals do? They move. They're cosmopolitans. They don't have national feeling. Russian liberals are going to move.
Professor Krebs, you've written about other ways to impose some sort of leverage on Russia, and perhaps that the IMF and the World Bank are
they'll kill for liberalism but not die for it. Exactly.
Tell us about that.
Right.
Okay, I gotta read this article. West must unleash. Holy fuck my brain.
So I think these are international financial institutions that can bring some resources to bear, a little bit along the lines of the Marshall Plan of rebuilding the Ukrainian society, the Ukrainian infrastructure, which I think will be really important in terms of its ability to be resistant and again kind of fight back against and rebuild after this damage that they've come under. So I think these institutions that are run by Europeans and Americans, but are very multinational, can bring resources to bear that I just don't think has been part of the conversation to the extent that it should be.
Professor Snyder, someday, hopefully, this war will end. But there's another war going on, a global war, a war on truth. Tell us about your concerns about that war.
That's a wonderful question, because it's really the same thing.
Wow, this is absolute. This is shock doctrine. He's calling for neoliberalizing Ukraine because they're being invaded. This article is vile.
The way that Russia is fighting this war depends on a larger propaganda claim about Ukraine, hate speech about what all Ukrainians are like, hate speech about Ukraine not existing as a nation. The Russian war effort depends on propaganda at home, in which it's denied that a true war is really being fought. The whole thing is being presented as some kind of a rescue operation. It's a completely alternative reality. So that is the shape of what tyranny can look like, not just in Russia, but around the world. We have to take a value position here and say, there is truth. It matters when tyrants lie. It matters when tyrants create alternative reality.
What? This is so stupid. Our closest allies in the Middle East are fucking tyrannies. This is so stupid. What an embarrassment.
And we have to build up the institutions, not just in Ukraine, but at home. Everything we know about Ukraine, everything that we're broadcasting and learning has to do with the fact that there are thousands of courageous reporters on the ground in Ukraine. That's a reality that we should be applying to our own country. We should be supporting reporting in our own country and everywhere we can, because not just winning wars and documenting war crimes depends upon reporters. Sustaining democracies also depends upon reporters.
So I'm curious, Professor Snyder. Mike Barnacle brings up the question about the truth. Truth's obviously been on the run and routed in many Western capitals and European capitals over the past several years. I am curious, though, your assessment of the last 55 days, and it's from Washington, D.C. to Warsaw. I mean, you look in the United States.
All right, this piece is like very short, so let's read it real quick so you understand just how batshit this is. To support Ukraine, the West must unleash the full power of the IMF and the World Bank. This is incredible. As Russia continues its deadly onslaught in Ukraine, U.S. and NATO and policymakers are navigating a tight balancing act. They must signal their resolve to help Ukraine, deter additional Russian moves westward, and avoid a direct military confrontation with a nuclear power. Sweeping U.S.-led sanctions against Russian elites and their assets were enacted to squeeze Russia's economy and military might. Last week, Biden announced an additional $800 million in military assistance on top of a $13.6 billion package that cleared Congress. Several critics have called for more military support, whether by establishing a no-fly zone or providing Ukraine with additional weaponry. By the way, what is Ukraine's GDP? I mean, it's like 155 billion? So we're basically boosting their GDP by military spending by 10%. Insane. That's just gifts. However, there is another tool that the West has yet to take. By the way, look at that Ukrainian economy. Dead flat since 2008. Jesus. Actually down since 2008. Incredible. International financial institutions. U.S.-dominated international financial institutions such as the International Monetary Fund and World Bank are deep reservoirs of Western power. Wait a minute! Reservoirs of Western power? I was told they were just loans to help countries. What do you mean reservoirs of Western power? Oh, tell me more. Whereas IFIs have traditionally assumed the role of facilitating international trade, ensuring stable exchange rates, and, quote, promoting the American development model. Wee-woo, wee-woo, wee-woo. What's the American development model? Well, I'll help you. You eliminate environmental and labor regulations. You end government programs and subsidies for consumption, especially things like housing subsidies, food subsidies, fuel subsidies, eating subsidies. You know, basically, you expose the population to the maximum possible market exposure, and then you allow foreign capital to come in without regulation to invest in your country's assets. So we're talking about raw materials, food production, and some of what are the raw materials? Oil, mineral ores, gas. That's what the American development model is. And then you privatize all state assets while cutting taxes on investing and the rich. The truly great American development model. Privatize public services, cut public services, maintain a balanced budget. Aside from sanctions against Russia, IFIs may prove to be the most significant source of financial leverage that the U.S. and its allies can deploy. IFI loans provide general budget support, meaning the Ukrainian government has the flexibility in how they spend the funds. World Bank funds could be spent to bolster sanitation, healthcare, and electricity that have come under attack. Such services are essential for Ukraine to mount an effective defense. IMF rapid financing offers Ukraine more flexibility, as the only condition is that the funds be used to support vital functions of the state, which may encompass the procurement of military equipment as well as the support of key public services, including the payment of wages to public servants. Funding the Ukrainian war effort indirectly through IFIs offers two main virtues. First, provides the U.S. and its allies political cover, and lessens the risk of military escalation. The World Bank and IMF both have memberships encompassing 190 countries, including Russia and its allies. And lending packages must clear a board composed of representatives from these countries. Such a broad endorsement may limit the potential for misperception by Russia, who may be less likely to view loans from international organizations as an escalatory form of American government involvement in Ukraine. Yeah, the Russians don't know that the IMF is just American foreign policy. Second, and most fundamentally, these packages would address economic instability. The IMF reported last week that the Ukrainian economy could shrink by 35% in 2022. Both the fund and the World Bank possess extensive expertise in economic crises, including in war-torn regions. We call that the shock doctrine, chat. We call that the shock doctrine. When a country is experiencing some sort of catastrophe, go ahead and take them over so that you can neoliberalize everything.
An alternative history. The economic chaos that we're seeing right now on Wall Street stems from many factors, of course, but among them are the ideas of Milton Friedman.
Friedman was a member of a group called the Mont Pelerin Society, but over the last 30 years, their ideas have become the dominant economic doctrine.
Only a crisis, actual or perceived, produces real change.
People had to be terrorized into accepting these economic policies. More than 13,000 opponents were arrested and imprisoned. Many were tortured. These techniques were not used just on soldiers or terrorists. They were used on anyone who opposed the free market economic policies of the regime.
Friedman had promised that capitalism and freedom went hand in hand.
What I'm describing now is a plan and a hope for the long term. The march of freedom and democracy, which will leave Marxism, Leninism on the ash heap of history as it has left other tyrannies which stifle the freedom and muzzle the self-expression of the people.
The free market came to Russia. There was chaos. It was all shock, no therapy.
This will be a monumental struggle of good versus evil.
We've been sold a fairy tale.
So this is what they're actively just proposing. Given the physical and economic damage Ukraine has suffered, these institutions could play an integral role in helping stem economic turmoil, both now and here it is, chat, in the future. An economically depleted population may struggle to resist the Russian invasion, and public utilities and infrastructure must remain operational. So you need to take big fat loans against your public utilities and infrastructure. IFIs are already beginning to step up. Earlier this month, the IMF board approved $1.4 billion in financing for Ukraine under its rapid financing instrument. The fast disbursement of such robust support to a country engaged in active interstate conflict is virtually unprecedented. Most IMF lending aims to, quote, address longer-run macroeconomic imbalances in exchange for policy reforms in the target state. They admit it. They admit it. And such loans can take months to clear the board under normal circumstances. Past rapid financing loans are dwarfed by the Ukraine package, with most falling in the range of 200 to 400 million. The World Bank has similarly mobilized 700 million in fast dispersing supplemental budget support for Ukraine and improved an additional 200 million last week. Still, these institutions must do more. While the IMF lent Ukraine the maximum amount allowed under the rapid financing instrument, the fund may be able to leverage other lending instruments or relax lending limits, as they did for many countries at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. The World Bank, meanwhile, is calling for additional contributions to a multi-donor trust fund that it's set up for Ukraine. UK, Denmark, Latvia, and Iceland were offering the first countries to contribute. Meanwhile, Japan and Sweden offered parallel financing. The bank also discussed providing Ukraine with additional supplemental loans in excess of 200 million by the end of March. Ukraine is likely to continue requesting flashier capabilities and more overt intervention from the US and NATO as the conflict progresses. The general budget support through US-led international organizations should not be underestimated as a means of warfare. If the first rule of proxy conflict is to avoid direct confrontations with the main adversary, the US ought to make full use of its arsenal of international institutional leverage. He's a postdoctoral fellow in the Niehaus Center for Globalization. I mean, this is, well, I regret to inform Ukraine that this is going to go down. Fabian, thanks to the 5 tier 1s. Economic policies by the West helped ensure that by destabilizing the former SSR states' economies in the wake of the fall. That's the point of the Strzok Doctrine. Take away choices of SOCDEM or welfare states and leaving Pinochet. Yeah, they don't want to put in a social democracy. They don't want to put in a social democracy. They want to turn Ukraine into a place to be exploited.
Vladimir Putin had a pretty high approval rating among Republicans in America, higher than Joe Biden, higher than Nancy Pelosi. Now he's at 2 or 3%. The lies that Donald Trump has told about Vladimir Putin have been exposed. And the overwhelming majority of Americans don't believe it. In Warsaw, of course, we had the Law and Justice Party. That has changed. Their positioning has changed dramatically. Western democracy suddenly seems to be vibrant and strong. Vladimir Putin, who we've set up as this boogeyman over the past 5 years for the disinformation campaigns he spread, has been exposed time and time again, humiliated day in and day out. John Kirby at the Pentagon standing up, telling Vladimir Putin what's going on in his own army, what's going on in his own government, what's going to happen next. I'm curious, do you see do you see the last 6 weeks as a bit more clarifying in this battle between truth and lies?
So I appreciate you're making that connection, because the same people who run the propaganda for Russia's wars in Ukraine since 2014, the same institutions, the same individuals were responsible for interfering in the Trump campaign on behalf of Mr. Trump in 2016. It's all one larger operation. If it's not working now, it has to do with the weaknesses of tyranny that we talked about before. Mr. Putin has vastly overplayed his hand. He didn't prepare his own country, let alone the world, for this much bigger invasion in 2022, the way he did for the invasion in 2014. So before we get cocky, let's remember just how many of us were fooled in 2014 and how hard it was for us to react. The things we're doing now to help Ukraine, we should have done 8 years ago, and then we wouldn't be in the fix that we are now. But of course, I agree with you. It's a very good sign that we can learn. It's a very good sign that we're not being fooled this time around. And it's a very good sign, I think, above all, that so many people now value reporters, especially reporters in Ukraine, and that so many institutions, including yours, have made a point of stressing that the truth matters, not just on its own, but as a kind of central ideal for democracy itself. So I do think we're learning.
Jesus Christ. All right, chat. We'll come back to this. This dude is talking about war like it's sports highlights, and I feel so bad for Ukrainians, man. To be the front of a proxy war, your country's gonna be fucking destroyed. The Americans and the Europeans are going to feast on your corpse like a vulture, and the Russian aggression is going to bomb your everything into fucking rubble, and you're gonna end up indebted, impoverished. If you are Ukrainian and you have a family, now is the time to fucking jump ship while you can. While that refugee status is easy to get the fuck out. Holy shit.